Great job. Great job. It's always fun taking over from someone else and kickstarting a session with all of your peers. So thanks very much for that intro. Hi, everyone. It's starting to become a little bit of a, hopefully not, a tables turned. We're up here, if you've read the news in the last 24 hours, there's lots happening up in Sydney town, and I am in one of the hotspots here in Sydney. So I've taken the opportunity to send our teams home yesterday. As you know, we run an outsourced trust accounting company as well. So with end of financial year looming next week, I thought better to get ahead of the curve. And of course, a lot of our work in much of our business is not client or customer facing every day. So we've taken the leap to head home. Otherwise, those that are in the offices up in Sydney Metro in various locations are all masked up and back to the distance radiuses and ratios there inside offices. And we are all starting to gear up that come this weekend. There's a bit of a sense on the ground here that we might be heading into lockdown. So I think that we keep talking about pivoting and changing, and it's quite interesting because obviously we do so much work with you guys and various businesses down in Melbourne. When anybody freaks out about having to wear a mask, I kind of have a little bit of a chuckle to myself and say, wear a mask. I think you'd rather wear a mask than be stuck at home with your kids for 33 weeks. So it's lots happening. So hopefully my audio and everything is okay there today. It was a quick shift up to get back into the home office here and be with you all. So I hope everybody is doing well and life's going okay down there in Victoria. And that the only thing that keeps you indoors at the moment is, of course, the chilly weather that we're all starting to head into. So today we're starting to move now. You guys are getting into a renewed pattern, and it's time to, it's funny, I was chatting with Jace, obviously, and I know that he's been speaking with the PM leadership crew there, and we were talking about the program, and how the infamous program that we were looking at running and starting, of course, earlier in the year when everything changes. So with that, we need to change our content too. But it's really lovely to be able to get into some technical content with you today. Of course, we've been talking a lot about more strategic content. We've been talking about the concept of service and growth and process and performance and you've been through legislative changes. So what we're going to embark on, let's not put the cart before the horse. Something could change in the next few weeks, as we know. But what we want to try and start to embark on now is getting into some more technical content there for you as well. So today's the first of that technical, and by popular demand, we're going into the world of maintenance. So what I'd love you to do first off is, I've of course got a presentation that we're going to be running here with you today. I'll just get that up into our screens now. But we're going to cover off on a couple of areas. One is that we'll look at some of the functional things that we're seeing happening on the ground in businesses right around the country and of course abroad. I don't want to go so technical that today becomes robotic and basic. So we're going to come at it from I suppose a couple of approaches. I want to get into the grassroots, of that context of maintenance and what it is to what I've called this closing the black hole, and how we can improve what we're doing. But I'm going to cover, as I said for you, I'm going to cover that off from a point of view of both a basic process, so a basic technical process, as well as looking at some different ways and give you some insights as to what you could put in place in your own businesses or things to think about. So please know that when I bring you a technical session, I'm not going to give you a bouncing ball, right? That's not my approach to business. It's not my approach into telling each one of you, this is how you must do it in your office. That you don't expect that from me ever. What I am going to show you is, here is an element of process that we go through in businesses, and I'm going to give you various ideas and ways and elements, tips and tricks both from the practical point of view, as well as a theory point of view, as well as a concept point of view that you can then consider putting into your particular processes. So every one of you is going to have different types of maintenance, different types of clients, different expenditure levels, different appetite for improvement. And we'll talk about that as we're going along, right? So when we talk technical, there is no cookie cutter, right? There is no cookie cutter. I know you would all love there to be one, but that would mean then that every single agency of every single style, brand, location would do things exactly the same way. And it'd be like, you know, walking into any burger joint in the country and everybody would be selling a Big Mac, right? And you'd have exactly the same way of doing it. So just bear that in mind as we're going along. I am going to do some interaction today, and I'm going to be getting you to write things down and be identifying for me little nuances that are happening for you in your particular offices so that we can discuss those and finalize or come up with, should I say, some ideas as to what could help you, particularly in that location. And as always, everyone will learn from that as we're going along. All right, so your first thing is this. When it comes to maintenance, right, when we do lots of business analysis work, which I think I've shared with you before. And if I ask any property professional, property manager, frontline person in the country, what is the thing that takes up the most time? Well, it's no surprises that today's session is one of the primary answers for what people think takes up the most time, right? So here's what I want you to do. First off, can you write down how much time each day overall, right? How much time each day overall you think you spend working on or around maintenance, right? Maintenance, repairs, anything that requires a trade of any level going to a property. Can you write that number down? Let's just see what that is. Write it down. And on that, how many hours, minutes, weeks in a day do you feel that you spend doing maintenance? Let's write that down. And then we're going to have a chat about some of these things that you write down, okay? So we've got that. So how much time do you spend? I then want you to write down how many maintenance jobs you think you do a day or a week, right? How many do you think you do a day or a week? How many maintenance jobs? So what I mean by that is, okay, I get plumber to go to Smith Street to fix, taps as an example, right? So how many of those you think you do each week? All right, now you've got those two numbers there. So you've got the number of jobs that you're doing each day or week, whichever one you want. I want you to extrapolate that out to a week now for me, right? So I want you to work out how much time you then spend each week doing maintenance. So if you worked it out on a day rate and you said, okay, I do 2 hours a day on maintenance, then of course, over a week, quick maths is you're doing on a 5-day week, you're doing 10 hours a week on maintenance. Okay, so work that out over the week. Now I want you to work out how many jobs you're doing per week. So now for my ease, you've said, okay, I do 5 jobs a day across a week. I'm now doing 25 jobs, right? So you've got 10 hours a week on 25 jobs. Is everyone with me so far? Can I see a show of hands? How's our maths going? Yeah. Okay, so now you've said, right, I'm doing 10 hours a week on 25 jobs. I want you to work out how much time you spend per job. Okay, so in that example that I gave you, you take your 10 hours. Let's get it out. You take your 10 hours, you divide it by your 25 jobs, and we've got 0.4 of an hour. Okay, so I've got 0.4 of an hour that we're spending. So in that regards, you're working on roughly 20 minutes a job. Okay, so now let's open up the mics. I want to hear around the grounds what the different stats are that you're finding in terms of the volume, because everything comes down to data. Remember I talked to you earlier about, over the last year, we've been talking about numbers and understanding how long it takes you to do anything, how much time you're spending, the volume of work you're doing. So what have we got? Let's jump in, because I'm going to help you improve this today. Okay, so we do 2 things: improve the timing and then improve the service level around it for our renters and our rental providers, our trades and ourselves. So what are the numbers? Who's going to jump in? Nicole, Mia, Anna, Natalie, Tamara, Brooke, Peter. What have you guys got? Rebecca, Gail, Kathy, Brad's crew. What have we got there in terms of numbers? Who's going to open up with the first ones for me? Oh, come on, Tamara. I just saw you take the mic off. Have you got your numbers?
I'm a BDM. I don't do maintenance.
Oh, okay. All right, Brooke, I saw you there playing around with your numbers. What did you come up with? Who wants to share their numbers? We're going to need a volunteer. I'm not moving on until I've got one. You need some guesstimates, guys. If this is the place from which you're going to start. Danielle, did you do yours? I can count on you for a number.
I just got an urgent maintenance call when you were saying all of that. I'm so sorry. That's why I
that's a
my camera off for a second. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Who's going to share one with me, guys? Morgan, have you got yours?
I'm not a property manager, but we have one of our PMs away, so I've done a little bit of maintenance the last couple of days. There's been a handful.
Well, in your team, Morgan, let's use that as an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in your team, how many maintenance jobs do you think that they do a day?
It varies a lot. Yeah, it varies a lot. Jane just said 5 to 10.
Yeah, okay.
Usually what you find in winter time, there's more impact on things such as ducted heating units, blah, 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 all that stuff. Same thing in summer with split system cooling. But in saying that, our portfolio is quite good in terms of the properties. So yes, you'll still get it, but nowhere near as bad as some of the properties that you do hear about, that is constantly just the drain of this has to be done, that has to be done. And our rental providers have been reasonably well educated on the urgency of getting things done, as opposed to sweeping it under the rug. I will deal with it. Actually, I had one about a week ago said, "Oh, can we wait till next financial year?" Well, no, you can't. This has to be addressed straight away. So, not too bad, and we're reasonably well on top of it. But the hardest thing is the unpredictable nature of the maintenance coming in.
Mm-hmm. And when it's really interesting you use that statement there, the unpredictable nature of the maintenance coming in. I love that, because there's almost like there's a predictability in the unpredictability, right? So when we go into, the reason I asked you guys to have a look at these numbers is because typically when we work with businesses and we talk to property managers, they'll tell us about, oh, we've got so much maintenance, right? Maintenance takes up so much time. And when we go in and we actually look at the numbers, and you can do this in your businesses, and I would suggest go back into your offices and have a look at your data, because when you go in and pull out, you can pull out a report that will show you how many maintenance items came in the last day, week, month. You can then look at that and say, okay, well, how much maintenance do we have across the entire year? And what is the trend and variance that occurs across that period of time, right? It would be like, imagine, have you ever been into a store and you go into that store and every week, and this used to happen back in the old days, I think, when you'd go into the bank, right? And everybody would want to go to the bank between 12 and 2 when they're on their lunch break, right? There'd be a queue out the door of people going to the bank. You see it even now at the post office still. And so there's this queue. But what happens at the bank or the post office is they put everybody on lunch breaks, right, between 12 and 2 when they get the highest volume of people coming in, right? Now, if you can imagine for a minute, imagine your time efficiency and the impact it would have if you were actually able to work out with some level of prediction when this spike in repair requests came in, right? When you were able to work out, is it a day of the week? Is it a week of the month? Is it a month of the year? Does it as a seasonal element? When is it that the repairs come in? And if you were then to look at it and say to yourself, okay, well, look, I have seen now that I'm getting 10 repairs a day. Morgan, I'll just go to a nice round number that you shared. So if you're saying, okay, I'm getting 10 repairs a day, if you are really getting 10 repairs a day on your portfolio across a month, that would be 200 repairs a month. If you were getting 200 repairs a month and they were each taking you 20 minutes, right? Let's just do a quick calculation on this. 20 minutes at 200 repairs a month, that is 66 hours a month you would be spending on doing maintenance in your portfolio, which you would imagine is about 2 weeks worth of work. The reason I share these numbers with you is because if you get an understanding of what is actually going on, the first thing that we need to be aware of is what does our mind think of maintenance, and therefore how do we manage the maintenance. If we feel that we have so much maintenance going on, but in reality we're only getting 2 or 3 repair items a day, which are taking 20 minutes, which should take 20 minutes, then that's 1 hour of maintenance a day that we're doing. What I tend to find happens is that scenario that I've just shared with you tends to be the reality of how maintenance occurs in a standard portfolio, right? That's not I'm talking about not the really old homes where you feel like you've got a maintenance on that particular home, every month or, a couple of months, standard properties. And what happens is the reason we feel that we have so much maintenance going on is actually the way we're managing the maintenance. The process that we're following in dealing with the maintenance is such that we touch maintenance so many times a day. And it's not the time it takes to actually do the maintenance, it's the time it takes to flick in and out of that maintenance mode or in and out of that maintenance pattern. Okay, is everybody with me there on that concept, right? So your first homework today is I want you to know your numbers around your maintenance. Okay, know your numbers around your maintenance. Know the number for those of you that are leaders in your business. It's really important that you understand the numbers for your teams, and then you understand the numbers for each portfolio, right, and each segment. Tamara, you're a BDM, right? Understanding the statistics around maintenance will be absolutely crucial for you as a BDM in changing that landscape for you in a level of expertise when you're sitting down with a client. You imagine if you could tell your client that on average, how many maintenance items they're going to have, on average, what their average spend would be for them, on average, how many times a month we would action or deal with maintenance for them. That just goes to add what the time to serve is and then what their cost base is, right? So imagine you could say to a client, look, for this type of property, you're going to get approximately 24 maintenance items across this year. Retrospectively, that's going to take us to manage that for you. You're going to get about 10 hours worth of work out of us just in managing your maintenance items. Now, if you were to pay us $50 an hour to manage your maintenance items while you're off doing something else, there's $500 worth of cost base that you'd be getting from us just in ensuring that we're maximising and minimising the time risk, etc., that goes on. Like powerful statements that you can start to use by understanding how we serve our clients, right? Now, and somebody else more than likely will have never thought to give anybody that data there tomorrow. All right, so let's now have a look. I want you to next thing I'd love you to do is I want you to write down when you're undertaking maintenance in your business, right? You're undertaking maintenance for your properties, the coordinating, think about all the elements, renters, rental providers, trades, your trust system, keys, reception, knowledge base, communication. What are 3 things that go wrong on the regular? What are 3 things that cause you a headache, cause the client a headache, the tenant a headache on the regular when it comes to maintenance? 3 things. Let's write those down. What are those 3 things? Three things. Maybe Kathy's Rhodes team there, maybe you guys have got one scribe. I know you don't have any, but somebody could pull together what you think the 3 things are that go wrong in your group. Same over at Anna's team. I can see you guys doing that. Great. Brad's group's got the disco lights going on there, so somebody's scribing. All right, so I'm going to call you by name, and I want you to unmic and give me what the 3 things are. And if somebody else has already said those 3 things, I still want you to repeat them. All right. All right, let's go to Talia. Talia, what are the 3 things that go wrong for you? And thanks for being the first one.
Okay. One thing I find that is hard to coordinate between rental provider and renters is having to schedule a time between the tenant and the rental provider when the rental provider is attending to the maintenance themselves, especially, you know, having such specific times. That's definitely an issue. And
yep.
You know, one might say, oh, it's urgent maintenance, and then it's like, okay, let's get that done as soon as possible. But then it's like, well, that time doesn't work for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And so there's probably a few other layers even there when the rental provider's doing their own repairs, right?
Yes.
one thing called licensing and insurance.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Who's going to go next? Nicole?
I
What are
don't
your 3?
do maintenance. Can you turn it down? Sorry. I can just echoing. I don't do maintenance myself. So
I'll come back to you, Nicole. Brooke, what have you got?
thank you.
Lack of communication from our trades.
Oh yeah.
Is that because your volume's up?
Yeah, it's because I'm reverberating. Okay, so lack of comms from the trades. Yeah. Gail, what about you?
So I'm a BDM as well, Fiona.
Okay.
But I know that with maintenance that tenants sometimes don't respond to the tradies when they're trying to gain access. That could be an issue.
Okay.
And tradies not getting back to us with quotes with maintenance. And also tradies do get back to us, and not always the property manager follows up on that quote. Forgets about it, stays in the inbox.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Gail. Anna, what about your crew?
Hi, Fiona. We're finding owners wanting multiple quotes, owners not wanting to spend money, and access from the renter to the property. So arranging access. So they're submitting the maintenance request, and then you know, they want to make access difficult for the tradie. There are 3.
Okay, great. So we can see some commonality across these already, right? So, you know, we've just spoken to, what is that, like 4 or 5 of you, and access is an issue. Quotes are an issue on various levels. And then, of course, I think everybody would agree that sometimes the owner wanting to do their own repairs is such a joy, and has been for, I think, 30 years that I've been doing real estate. I don't think that one's changed much there. Okay, so my first comment to you around your process is I want you to go back into your process, and I'm going to give you tips and tricks, but straight away there, you've already identified the things that drag you down when it comes to your efficiencies with getting repairs completed, right? And what we tend to do, it's like the never-ending saga of keys. You know, when we talk about routines, you know, I say to people, well, what's one of the main issues that happens with routines? And they say, well, we get to the property and the keys don't work, or we don't have keys. I say, okay, but you keep sending out a letter to a tenant saying you're going to use keys before you've actually checked the keyboard to make sure that the keys are there, right? And so I use that by way as example, because we tend to keep doing the same thing the same way, yet we keep getting the same problems, the same things going wrong, right? So changing up what we're doing, the first thing I want you to do today is be thinking about those issues that you have. They are costing you time, they are costing you money, they are creating stress, not just for you, but for all of the parties. So stopping for a moment in our businesses, and whether you do this around maintenance or anything, and saying, okay, these are the things. Imagine in your monthly meeting, end of month meeting, you say, what are the consistent things that went wrong this month? Great. What are 3 things that we could do to change that? What are 3 things that we could do to minimize what went wrong this month? And actually then going back and changing our processes and our procedures, communication methods, styles by which to reduce that from happening in the month coming. Because I can tell you that those things, these are not things that have just been happening in the last month. Everything that you've shared and those that haven't been shared, but you could see what's on your page, they're things that have been happening for 12 months, maybe even 12 years. But it's actually making the commitment to say, right, how am I going to change it? What am I going to do to ensure that this doesn't happen again or minimize it from happening, right? We can't necessarily eradicate things altogether. All right, so that comes down to, there's 3 things I want you to be thinking about when it comes to your maintenance. Your process, so the actual way you do things, your methodology, the management of your time. The second thing is your communication, the depth of your communication, the breadth of your communication. When it comes to maintenance, there's a lot of assumptions that are made on all parties: rental provider, renter, trade, and the agency. A lot of assumptions. We assume people know things. We assume information about the property. We assume that people that have an understanding of maintenance, basics and so forth, even within our own businesses. I was in a meeting last week with a client up here in Sydney. We had a team meeting going on. Everyone was talking about a particular item in a home, and I could see that the new property manager in the room, she's a trainee, and I could see she had no idea what it was we were talking about, this particular element of a home. And no one stopped the conversation to tell her, but equally, she didn't stop the conversation to ask. Why? When people think that they should know something because of the way we're communicating about it, they don't stop and ask. You'll have all been in conversations yourselves over time, right? Be that in a professional or a personal sense. And you can see these things going on and you're like, oh my God, everybody knows what we're talking about here. I have no clue what that term means or what's playing out. And we don't stop to ask in a lot of cases because we think that people will think we're stupid, right? So process, communication, and information are typically all of those elements that you've even just mentioned there. They're all ways that we can focus on in order to improve how things are done. So in its most basic format, you've got a process. Does everybody have a documented procedure as to how they do things when it comes to maintenance in their office that I could go and get off a shelf, off a online portal, on a server somewhere that shows me how maintenance is done in your office? Yes or no? Who's got one of these? Let's see, show of hands if you've got it, or raise of hands in the chat box. Who's got one of these? Only a couple of people, right? So if you don't have a documented process in your office, that means everybody's just doing things however they see fit. It's got to be documented. And one of the key things that happens is when somebody new starts is they either bring their process from their old location, they create it, or it gets handed across to them by osmosis out of this thing, right? Out of their people's mouths showing them. And that's how stuff gets lost. Processes change and then time starts to lag on what you're doing. Now, that doesn't mean that when somebody new starts in the business that they're not going to come with great ideas around how we could change things, but it does mean that they're going to perhaps bring inefficient ways of how we do things, how they do things too. So it has to be documented. This is just a quick, you can see here, so I'm just going to take you off my screen for a sec. You can see here that this is just a quick flow chart. Obviously in our business, we're with the clients we work with, you've then got a massive documentation behind it, right? And all the standardized forms, templates, processes or procedures, technology that we use. Is anybody in the team there, is anyone using a maintenance system, like a piece of software, like a Bricks and Agent or a Property Tree? The Bricks and Agent version there is Maintenance Plus. Does anybody use anything like that in their business to automate maintenance, or are you using just the traditional trust accounting software? Anybody use the software, technology, new things? Anybody who's using just your standard software? Let's see, standard software. Yeah, okay, I'm seeing standard software. Okay, cool. So whatever it is that you're using, then you have to factor into how you use things, right? We're always amazed at the lack of knowledge that people have around new updates and so forth. So depending on what software you're using, I'm not necessarily suggesting you should go out and get something external to your software where you have another 5 programs to use, but there's also value in having a look at what add-ons and additions have been put into your system now, right? But we'll come back to that. All right, so here's the process. Let's step through each of these sections, and then I'm going to give you, I've got about 25, 30 tips that I want you to be looking at how you can use to make some changes in your business. The first thing comes in is obviously the request comes in, we know, and there's a myriad of different ways that somebody can put a request form in. What we're seeing emerging now is actually looking at how people are being able to provide that, particularly when English is a second language, right? I know that, say, Bricks and Agent, which is one of our partners, they're working on the ability at the moment for somebody to submit, wait for this, a repair request via WeChat in Mandarin. And it'll come in via WeChat. There'll be a decoder system that'll translate it into English and come through to the end user, because they've got clients that are needing that. It's about making the submission of maintenance easy. I want you to write this one down. Do we make doing business easy? Is it easy for our customers and our clients to do business with us? When we go through all of these processes, getting the data in, how much data are we capturing? What are the minimum requirements? Are we mandating the format? So not just it needs to come in writing, but what a repair item includes. The details that obviously come in, how quickly do they get into our software? Are they coming straight into our software? Or are we then having to manually go through and enter those again? So do all of those things link up? What's the method? I'm going to give you tips on all of this, obviously, but what's the method by which we get authority from the client to go ahead, and how do we language that? Are we telling the client that we're doing it, or are we asking for permission? Do we have a non-response piece of communication? So, dear Mr. Landlord, tap requires repair. I'm going ahead with this unless I hear from you by the close of business today. Or are we waiting for the client to come back to us and then giving them the opportunity, Anna, to ask for 3 quotes for a tap repair? Think about how do we speed up this process for what is going to be the inevitable anyway. I challenge you that a client doesn't want to do repairs. I don't think that it's a client doesn't want to do repairs. I think it's a client has cash financial concerns about spending money and ensuring that they have to spend it. Landlords, what happens if a landlord doesn't agree and doesn't approve the repair? One of my favorite things to do for a landlord who says, no, I'm not going ahead with the repair, and you guys know that it needs to get done, is sending them a risk notification. I think we spoke about this, and I think you and I might have even spoken about it after a session last time, where we talked of sending a landlord a notification that basically says, we note that you have not approved for this work to be completed. We confirm to you that all risk associated with the lack of completion of this repair is now transferred to you, using whatever language you want. Should the tenant make any claim for loss, liability, injury, financial loss as a result of your incompletion of this repair, all costs will be met by you. You know, it's really interesting what happens when we get a bit tough with clients and we put the responsibility back onto them. What do you think happens most of the time when you send out a notification like that? Right? You get a phone call from the client that goes, oh, sorry, I didn't realize it was so important. Please let me go ahead. Sometimes we've got to turn the heat up a little bit in order to get the client to do what it is that we know they need to do, right? Okay. Landlord confirmation and invoice received. Now, of course, it's not as simple as those 6 elements. We know that, and you'd have your own insurance claim procedure, which would be slightly different to this as well. What I also want you to do is understand, getting that perspective of who your landlord clients are. So are your landlords accidental landlords, or sorry, rental providers? Are they accidental Are they accidental rental providers, or are they intentional rental providers? What's their financial positioning? You know, if someone says to me, can I get that repair done next year? No, but you can pay for it then. Let me organise, let me talk to the tradesperson, let me see if we can get the repair done today and we'll get the invoice issued for the 1st of July. Right? They're looking at different maybe it's a financial tax minimisation thing that they're looking at. Right? Maybe it's kicking the costs down the curb rather than getting the job done. Right? So really understanding who that client is and why they're wanting things done, you know, in those different ways. All right, let me give you some insight tips today. Right, first of all, this is what I'm calling for you today, the 7 things, right? These are the 7 things that sorry, my screen keeps playing around. When you look at me looking around my screen today, it's not playing nicely with me. Bear with me one sec. Making it difficult. Okay, thank you. All right, let's have a look at what these 7 things are, right? The first one is property product knowledge. When I was growing up, right, I'm 44, I'll be 45 this year. You know, your dad would take you out, being very stereotypical now, and you know, I knew all about the house, right? We would change washers together. We would do repairs on the home together. I'd be up on ladders with Dad. He'd be teaching me all about everything to do with the home. Flash forward to today, you know, and Gen Ys and Gen Zs. And the new generation coming through, I think they're called Generation Alpha. And so that same level of knowledge is not necessarily been a part of the makeup of what that learning has been in a family. Be that mum or dad, like I'm the one here in my home who's got the toolkit. You know, I'm the one that's doing the bits and pieces around the house. My husband, he's the person that he'll call a trade, he won't know what to do, right? And that's not a slight on making one of us better or the other. It's just a knowledge gap. And so when somebody starts in your business, they don't know what a phalange is, right? They don't know how you would, all the intricacies of electrics and looking at sub-mains and mains and fuse boxes. And we don't necessarily have that knowledge, and neither does our renters, and potentially neither does our rental providers. Also mixed with that, the multicultural nature of the evolution of society is that people have come, you know, might be their very first home in Australia, perhaps if they were renters in a previous location, and the way that has occurred and what renters do and what rental providers do is very different. So even just starting out in your offices, in your businesses, is understanding your product. I've got a new starter in an office right now, and she's finding it extremely difficult to do an ingoing inspection report because she doesn't know what things are called. So it's not that she doesn't have the capability to do the report, it's that she doesn't know what a cornice is. She doesn't know, you know, the different types of floorings in a home. And so getting that property product knowledge and going through and creating an overview of what that is in your business. And even imagine if you had a trades come in. right? Imagine if you had trade come into your office and a trade was able to talk somebody through, you know, each week in your meetings or each month, whatever it might be, you got to give it a basic understanding of what's going on in a home. You know, what's the basics in plumbing? What's the basics in electrics? And so giving it, and even what that next level is as you're going on over time, and really starting to build out that product knowledge. Because when you're on the phone to a client, remember I said communication was one of the challenges. You know, part of us is about, do we even understand what's needed to be done, why it's needed to be done, and how can we then pass that information on to our clients and our customers, you know, as we're going along. Number two there is average costs. One of the reasons why clients want quotes for things is because they're not necessarily aware of what the average costs are. Going to your trades and getting your trades to give you an overview. What's it going to cost on average to change some washers on a property, you know, to fix lights, the cost per hour, average hours to do things, you know, even down to carpets, paintworks, repairs on and hot water systems, and you know, internal and external. When you can get that list of average costs, and by the way, your trades, the reason why it's so challenging at times to get trades to go, trades do not want to quote, right? Trades are scarce enough. They don't want to do quotes. And one of the great things that you can do with clients, which hopefully you're already doing, but as a basic, is to tell a client a trade is going to charge you to do a quote. If you don't go ahead with the quote, they're going to receive a quote, they're going to receive a cost for the quote. Otherwise, if we think that we can just go and get 3 quotes, we'll go and get 3, we'll go and get 6, because it's not costing us anything to do. So part of understanding that cost base is, you know, and we get clients to do this quite a lot, is, look, it's probably going to cost approximately $200. The client, the tradie, when the tradie is on site, do you want to be available so that we can get the cost approved? Otherwise, we will go ahead, right? Really owning that position and not changing your approach for 5% of your clients, making sure that you've got that, that clear line out there for everyone. 360 communication. Guys, when it comes to repairs, to me, repairs are not done via email. Potentially text, but most likely it's a phone call. When you go into email comms, and by the way, the only reason you would use an email is just to advise, this is my opinion, is to advise we're getting it done. If you're using a system, a maintenance system, there'll be a lot of automation there. But one of the reasons why I find maintenance blows out, days to complete blow out, approval rate times blow out, is because it's done via email. And when you email me, it's different depending on the type of client you've got, but when you email a rental provider, if they don't want to spend that money this week, guess what they're going to do to your email? Are they responding to it or not responding to it? Right? They're not responding to it. Whereas if you pick up the phone and they answer, there's an immediate conversation about what needs to be done. We can iron out the knowledge, we can transfer the importance, we can discuss average costs, and we can get approval, even contingency approval to go ahead, but you've got them on the phone and you can get that done, particularly in a environment where it's a cost-based environment. Okay. Evidence, photos, and video. I love this. As much as possible, getting getting a renter to provide videos or photos of the issue, particularly if they don't have product knowledge. Right? If they don't have knowledge about the property and they're telling you what's going on in the home, the image of what's happening is going to serve to obviously of a far greater value. Also, when you've got an image, you can send that to the trade. The trade could give you a quick rough estimate via an image or a video. That can go back to the client. You have the conversation with the client, you're sharing the same image and video with them, and then you can get that thing, you know, round up in a quicker time frame. And when I mean quicker time frame, by the way, that's not elongating the number of days and weeks. That's about getting the approval, sending it through the trade, getting it booked in with the tenant. So thinking about that evidence-based conversations and communication that you're having, the sharing of that information. If you are having to communicate via email, right, you've got that 1 minute more concept that we've been talking about. So how can I get the video? How can I get the photos? How can I provide the product knowledge? How can I get the rough estimate of the quote or the costings? Then can I send that through? At that point, are you in a provision to advise the client you're going ahead because here's everything that we need to get done? Spend 1 minute more on the why, the risk factors of not completing it, the importance of maintaining that property for the tenant to feel that safe and secure, enjoying their home so that they're not moving out, which will of course improve the landlord's overall income across that entire year. So that 1 minute longer on that phone call may very well be absolutely paramount in getting that client to approve it or simply just letting you go ahead ongoing. Number 6 to me is something that we don't do a lot of, and that's following through on that completion. What do I mean by that? I mean checking in with the tenant that the work has been done. Checking in with the trade that the work's been done. But one of the things that goes wrong, I've seen this and I'm sure you guys have too, is a trade goes and does work. The job's done. Yes, absolutely. The plumbing's been fixed or the electricals have been fixed, but it has created another repair item in its wake. So painting or plastering or cleaning or mopping up of water damage and other elements that we might need to be aware of. So imagine now a text message to the tenant that says, hi Fiona, it's Morgan from O'Brien, checking in that the plumbing has been done today to your satisfaction and there's no other rectification works required at this stage. Yep, great. Would you mind sending me an image of that? Could you share with me a photo that you're happy with the work's done? People are walking around with their cameras all the time. It's super easy for them to do. And if they've got a problem, they're going to let you know at that point. Remember that the tenant's previous experience with repairs and maintenance is going to influence how they deal with you. So if they've had a previous agent who's not been interested in doing repairs or a landlord that's not been interested in doing repairs and they've just put up with stuff, sometimes they don't even want to tell you, or they've had an agent where they've had repairs done and then the rent goes up. You know, they've got this backpack of a scenario in being a renter, and they're going to bring that to this relationship. So following up is just going to obviously help you. And that's also, as I mentioned there, around confirming the quality of the work that has been completed there as well. Tenants are the best location for this to be done if you're having struggles with your tradies, which we'll talk about tradies in a sec. Okay. Right, so they're my first 7 things there. My next for you are some quick tips on other things that you can do to improve the processes. Right, tell renters the process. So imagine now you get a repair request or advice for requiring maintenance, and back goes to the renter, here's what our process is. And you might say, oh yeah, well, but they do that all the time. One of the things that I'll tell you, and I think I've got it on a forthcoming screen, is you've got to educate people when they need education, right? You've got to educate people when they need the education. So at that time, it's, here's what's happening. You've sent me in the repair. Now here's what's going to happen from here. Just reminding them of what's going to occur. And also reminding them is how they could speed up the process. So thank you for your repair. 3 ways that you could help speed up the process of getting this repair done. 1, provide a photo. 2, provide a video. 3, provide further details in regards to the make, model, location of the particular item that they're wanting to get looked at. Get them to come on board with you in that speed of the journey. I mentioned to you around notification of how they can notify you. So is it easy to share a repair request with you? Imagine if when a tenant moves in, you send them a contact link, you know, like a contact card for you. It gets emailed, it gets saved to them in their phone, or you're sharing your contact through your iPhone system. And in the notes section, it's got all the details about how to lodge a repair. It's got the details of emergency contacts, and it's all sitting for them, and you've put it into their phone in the format that you've wanted it. You could even send them a contact card called Repairs at O'Brien's, and it's got all the info in there as to how they do it, and they can look that up. Of course, you've got apps, you've got website URLs that they can do, quick links that they can use, but getting it into their phone, which is the place that they're going to go to all the time. Thinking about social, being able to lodge a repair via social media, instant messenger, text message, you know, making doing business easy. I mentioned to you the images don't lie, right? So getting those photos, FaceTiming them, right? If a tenant rings up and goes, oh, I've got an urgent repair, like we just mentioned earlier, Danielle said, you know, great, let's jump on a FaceTime right now. Take me, can you show it to me straight away? Right, using that to gather as much information as you can. Doing a weekly trade review. So how many items have I sent out to the plumber this week? How many items have they completed this week? What's that ratio? How quickly? Because sometimes we've got a plumber, they do great work, but then we realize that it's actually taking them a longer period of time when we look at the ratios versus other trades and even comparing them to each other, right? This is all about getting things done quickly and obviously competently with a quality level of work in that as well. Blocking out time, right? Blocking out time each week, blocking out time during your day. I'm going to deal with maintenance for 30 minutes in the morning. I'm going to deal with maintenance for 30 minutes at 3 o'clock. Making sure that you're not doing it all day long. Your email inbox is not a to-do list, guys. It's a mode of communication. So when you've got that block out time sectioned in, you know, going through color coding, you know, if you use color coding in your email system, or if you're using a to-do list in your task base, you know, getting those repairs, dropping them into the appropriate area. If you are going through your email to segment your day out, you know, multiple times a day, use that time to do that. Don't keep it all in that inbox, okay? And if you're minimizing the quotes and maximizing your phone conversation, you're going to see that that will speed up for you as well. Using that system that you've got, be that your trust accounting system or that maintenance system, but using it for the service that you're providing. Right? Some maintenance systems, you know, the software, they're not for every office. They're not for every style of management. They're not for every service provision standards, right? For clients, they don't work for everyone. So you've really got to look at what your system can do and how you are utilizing it most effectively. You know, quite often when I'm looking at maintenance, you know, people don't complete a job until the invoices come in, right? I complete the job once I know the job's done. It then goes on to pending invoice as a different status, whatever that is to you. But I want you to know that your jobs are all done. You can follow up invoices at the end of the month in a different format, in a different time frame, right? But, you know, hi, Bill, here's all the invoices that we haven't received, all the jobs you've done this month that you haven't billed for. Please do it. I need to get the charges in. But use your system effectively. Get somebody to be a champion. A post-inspection phone call. I think this is great for reducing repair time to serve. So when you go to your routine inspections, you're calling the client, talking to the client about the routine, using it as a touch point phone call and letting them know the repairs that need to be done. Having already had the discussion, I'm going to go ahead and get these repairs completed. Here's what the rough costs are going to be to get each one done. Here's what the time lag is. I'll send you the formal report, but this is what we need to have happen, right? So utilizing that as a time by which to get those repairs completed more efficiently rather than elongating the time, right? It's like, you know, when people, and you'll see it now this week, everyone's trying to get all this stuff done before end of financial year, you know, so that they're not paying as much tax. They're still paying tax. They're just kicking it down the road a little bit, right? So, you know, it's kicking, you don't want to kick that repair down the road and elongate how long it takes you to get it done. And we've talked, of course, about as much as possible, avoid getting quotes. Go straight into getting the work done because you guys already know how long it's going to, how much it's going to cost to do. All right, let's talk about the top trade relationship tips. Trades are obviously a really big key. These are the challenges and wins that we see when we're working with businesses in regards to your process. I don't know why number 2 keeps coming up. Sorry, guys. First one is communication for the renter. I'm just going to bring these up. Yeah, thanks. So number 1 is consistency for the client. I'm seeing this a lot with the different systems that people are using, and particularly if you've got multiple clients, multiple property clients. we're seeing that with some software, some trade software, you've got different plumbers going to the property all the time, right? Depending on how that software works. For some business models, the service business models, this is not a raving fan solution for landlords, right? So you've really got to look at the consistency of your trades and how they work, with them obviously being an extension of the consistency of service for you guys. When it comes to the tenants, looking at that communication and how you're managing that, you get two models of issues. One is trades don't call the tenant, or two, the tenant doesn't call the trade. So imagine now when that when the repair request goes out to the trade, imagine now that that's CC'd to the tenant. Right? If tenant's going to be onto that trade quicker than lightning, and if the trade knows that you're doing it, then the trade's going to be quick to try and get ahead of the curve there with the tenant. On that, imagine now that you actually get from the tenant 3 days in the next week where it would be convenient for the tradesperson to come and do the repair for them at the time that they're registering the repair. Because when they put the repair in, if they say, oh no, I'm not going to be available for 3 weeks, or they say, yes, I can use the keys, right? Then you're going to mitigate that time back and forward in getting the job actually booked in. And that, of course, can be done via text as well. The legalities around the trade component for everyone, right? So understanding the legalities of things for the trades, which is insurance, and of course their licensing, but making sure that everybody understands that. Landlords, or rental providers, renters, and you guys, and the trades too. And a really good way to do that is to get a trade agreement in place. So an agreement that your trades sign that says here how we are going to operate with your business. This is like the terms of engagement. Get them to check. We have to check in on their service, but we need to check in on our service to them. So what is it that they're expecting from us? How can we make their life easier? And by virtue of that, law of reciprocation, they're going to help make our life easier as well. Following through on everything with the trade to make sure that they know that we are a team and that they're an extended part of our team. So what does that look like in terms of how often we communicate, who checks in with them? You know, when was the last time one of the leaders in your business checked in with your plumber, with your electrician, with your carpenter, with your handyman, with your carpet provider, your painter, your gardener, to see how we were going? You know, maybe they're dropping the ball because they think we have. And we do see that quite a bit as well. And this one I think is really important. Your tradespeople need to be the tradespeople of the business, not of the team members. So it is not property managers. They are not your plumber. They are the business's plumber. You know, we've had some really scary stuff happen in the last 18 months when it comes to side deals going on with tradespeople and property managers. And I don't want to put any ideas in anyone's head, but more to say that as the leaders of the business, Morgan's like, shit, I better call everybody, is that you need to make sure that those relationships are with the business and the trade. So when was the last time one of your significant tradespersons came in for a catch up with the business, not a phone call with the PM? You know, and making sure that we're all looking after each other. Okay, and then my last set of rules for you is this: prevention is better than cure. Right, so when it comes to this, is around how do we, first of all, what is our maintenance values? You know, what do we as a business, what do we value when it comes to maintenance and how we do it? You know, if you said to a rental provider or to a renter coming in, is here, guys, this is how we feel about maintenance. This is what is important to our business when it comes to repairs. And then that has to be lived by everybody in the team. When a tenant oh, sorry guys, look, I did it there. When a renter comes into your business and you're sitting down with them and you're inducting them as part of their onboarding process. You know, what do we do to talk about maintenance, but how do we expose our values and the importance of working together? When we're going out and we're doing routine inspections, that's a great opportunity for a reminder to a tenant. Sorry, I'm really trying hard, everyone, to call it. Gosh, it must have been difficult for you guys those first couple of weeks, and probably still is. So when it comes to those routine inspections and we're there with a renter and we're reminding them about the maintenance process. So we're reminding them about how we feel about maintenance and how important it is to upkeep that property. I spoke to you already, mentioned education at the time that it's needed. So education, maybe it's around re-educating maintenance and repairs at the routine, at the lease renewal, at the rent review with landlords, rental providers, and then looking then at, maybe even it's about looking at an annual maintenance report. So when it comes to maintenance, maybe it's about reviewing. You come to end of financial year, imagine if you looked retrospectively for that client at what maintenance had actually been done in the last 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. When you're speaking to a client about getting a repair done, imagine now you're talking to them tomorrow. We talked about those averages before, right? So imagine saying, well, look, on average, your spend on maintenance is actually sitting at 40% less than our average client. So you're doing pretty well, right? And you can even look at, your tax accountants that you work with, the different business advisors that you have in that regard, even down to depreciation, with your depreciation companies. They will be able to tell you what that average spend is. And so you can remind clients maybe perhaps that they're not even spending that much. I talked to you about that tradie expertise and really drawing on that and getting them in. I'm sure for most of you, we've never had the plumber come in and give an update on what's going on and what the latest trends are in plumbing, right? We tend to look at smoke alarms and of course, at the moment, you're going to need to be getting those, the safety checks with getting the updates and information about that. But just start looking at the whole wider berth on that as well. And maybe even looking at giving some seasonal suggestions to clients. So what are the things, and doing that in advance. So as you're coming into summer, what would the things be that somebody should look at on their property in summer? What would the things be that you need to look at in autumn, in winter, in spring? And so then getting ahead of the curve there in regards to that preventative maintenance on a property. And also, as you know, when somebody's down there, not just looking at one tap, looking at every tap, the prevention around getting that next level of cost base in. And these are really important things. Please don't think, guys, that every rental provider doesn't want to spend money. Most rental providers want to do this. They want value. They don't want to waste money. They want to upkeep their property. They want to prevent excess costs. Walking in their shoes, talking their language, and supporting them through communication will help bridge that gap between confusion and clarity. It's been awesome being with you today. I know I gave you a rocket launcher of ideas and things to think about. I'm going to stay online and open up the desk now for questions or comments. What I'd love is a quick round the grounds of one thing that you're going to do after today's session when it comes to maintenance that you want to look at in your business. So let's jump off this share screen here and open up to you guys for some questions. Who's going to hit me? Oh, hi, Kathy. There you are. Let's hit me with the one thing that you're going to do to take back into your office and change.
Hi, Fiona.
Hello.
Hi. I think what we've taken out from today's session is that it's all about communication, and if you've got the right procedures in place for communication, you'll probably be able to overcome the difficulties that we do have with maintenance. It's maintenance does take up a great deal of our time, and I really thank you for sharing your tips, because it allows us to sort of work on, you know, some of our deficiencies. But I think what I've taken out today is just having that communication with the landlords and trying to educate them that we're on their side and we're trying to do everything that we can for them to make sure that they have a good you know, rental property that's at so that it's, you know, it's performing well for them.
Yeah, 100%. Fraser?
It was your opening line. Know your numbers. I don't
Know
think
your
we know our
numbers.
numbers well enough.
Yeah, know your numbers. Yeah, it's great. I think you'll be very surprised when you drill down into those. All right, guys. Well, I know we're out of time today. It's been awesome being with you. I will look forward to catching in with you all. If any of you want any further information on what we've discussed today, or you know, any copies of anything, please just send me an email, fiona@realplus.com.au, and I am really looking forward. I love next time we meet, if you could let me know a bit of an update on what you found when you look at your numbers. So Fraser, I'll make sure that you check in with me on that next time. All right, guys, take it easy. Have a good week. Bye.